Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
It's just a great conference that is at a point right now where they're, I think, clearly the best Group of Five conference in the country.
The state of SunBelt football is the strongest in our history.
And we got to continue to showcase what our league is about.
This league is insane.
Yeah, it might be like one of those 8 wonders of the world.
And you can see just what a great Group of Five conference it really is.
It's a big deal.
Boy, life is looking pretty good in the SunBelt these days.
Very excited about the SunBelt.
We started the SunBelt back in '76, and I'm very proud of what has transpired through the years.
You know, while other conferences have been breaking up, our conference has become stronger.
Edit that out, Dusty.
Welcome back to FunBelt Podcast Season 2. Jeremy with HowlRaiser.com joins me, Dusty Thibodeaux from Warhawk Report.
Wait a second. You didn't tell me that we were going to start calling it Season 1, Season 2, Season 3. That's big time, Dusty.
Glad I didn't print the T-shirts yet if you didn't approve of that.
Oh, no, I approve. I approve 100%. I am stoked by the way that we are labeling our podcast. Season 2 of FunBelt. I love it.
We wrapped up football season, winning record 3-1, good bowl season. I think even Appalachian State's lost there to Western Kentucky in the game. They just got zapped, is all there is to it. I think great quarterback there, and, you know, something that we can still hang our head high, 3-1 in the bowl season.
Western Kentucky was a team of destiny. There was almost no way they were going to lose that game. And there's certainly no way that Zappe was going to press or release his foot off the gas and not try to get that big record that he ended up getting at the end of the game. But yes, congratulations to the SunBelt. Once again, another winning postseason record for the SunBelt, which some people look at that and they kind of forget about it. Or, you know, if you're the SEC, you shrug and you say something kind of snotty about it. But it's a sign of the times for the SunBelt. The SunBelt used to be a league that could not win those postseason games. Now we expect to win those postseason games. So good for us. Good for the SunBelt. With
football wrapping up, we're talking hardwood. Mm-hmm. So far, the story of the early 2-week season, COVID. COVID is racking up the dubs there.
Oh, it's undefeated.
It has been undefeated.
Even with COVID, Tibbs, let me ask you this. 2 weeks into the conference play, would you expect, even with COVID, that Georgia State, Texas State, and South Alabama would be without a win going into the third week of conference play?
Not at all. And just like I would not have expected UT-Arlington or Troy to be sitting atop the SunBelt Conference standings.
SunBelt entropy. There is no predicting the SunBelt. We spent the entire time talking about how bad UTA was. Entire time talking about how bad UA Little Rock is, and they're bad. And talking about Troy was probably in some sort of reclamation or some sort of restoration mode, that they might, you know, be lucky to kind of be in the middle of the pack. And look at them, 3-1, right behind Louisiana. So what do you make of the SunBelt, SunBelt basketball right now? It's almost impossible to have an accurate opinion about them because they will fool you at every turn.
The teams that have played have been really good.
Yeah.
And I think that Troy, the power of Scott Cross, has really gotten the Trojans up and going. To me, the biggest shocker, though, has been the Mavs. The Mavs have actually just come out of the gate, guns blazing, galloping to the top of the SunBelt Conference standings. And I say that not only because I believe that, but the man that has the best looking jackets in all of college basketball, the voice of your Mavericks, Josh Sowers, joins us. Welcome in, Josh.
Always good to finally be with y'all. I know it's been I know we've tried to get this scheduled a few times, but I'm glad to finally make it happen. And when y'all get those T-shirts printed, sign me up. I'll tell you my address right now if you need it.
Josh, if we had signed you up earlier, if you had somehow been able to get in earlier, could you have warned us about UTA? Could you have said, look, this team isn't what you think it is, guys. This team is a SunBelt killer. Would you be able to have told us that, or are you just as surprised as the rest of us?
Honestly, no. Just because UT-Arlington played just an absolutely ridiculous non-conference schedule, and it all started with that Oklahoma State game back on November 9th. That was, 5 days after Oklahoma State got told they're not going to the postseason. Well, they basically wanted to, for latter terms, shove it up someone's behind. So they came out there, looked like the greatest team we've ever seen. And that's when we got run out of the gym, basically. And that's happened a few times. We didn't really have much of an offense this season. We had a couple wins in non-con. And they were like, okay, maybe we can put something together. But no, this team has absolutely caught fire, cooled off a little bit last night with a tough one to Georgia Southern. But this team has something, and they're starting to come together. The culture changed a little bit. The offense got reworked with the coaching staff, and they're starting to finally put things together. And this is a tough team, and they're starting to show it off with that way. Like I said, a 3-1 start to the season, opened up with an overtime win over South Alabama, a healthy South Alabama at the time. So they're feeling pretty good right now. We're liking this team.
So a new title there, at least for Greg Young. He's been in the program there for 12 years, but took over the head coaching role. Early struggles 1-3. What do you feel he did to kind of adapt and get this team up and going after that sluggish 1-3 start?
Well, it's just getting those the news pieces of the puzzle to fit correctly, and we've got several newcomers, and we've got guys that are still developing. Now we do have a lot of experience on this roster. Some of that experience not with UTA. Javon Levi, one of the most experienced guys in college basketball with 120 plus games played, but all those are down in the WAC, down at UT-RGV. So trying to find the right pieces, placing them in. The offense is working out. We've lost a guy, Pedro Castro, who's our third leading scorer, and we've simply had guys step up. They've gone into their roles that they weren't normally used to being in, and they're able to mold their game, mold themselves into the role that they need to be in. And that's exactly what we saw this last weekend. We were out a couple of guys. Those guys able to mold themselves into the role that they necessarily weren't accustomed to, weren't brought in to do, but they made it happen.
Josh, you said a little something about offense, but it's clear to me that it's not offense that's carrying this team. Mavericks are dead last in scoring in the SunBelt. How are they getting these wins? Is it the obvious? Is it defense, or is it something else that I'm missing?
It is defense. Greg Young is head coach of the Mavericks. He's always been the defensive coach. When he was under the Scott Cross regime, he was a defensive specialist. That's what he would key on when he would do the scouting on other teams. So he has that defensive mindset. He always has. He always will. It's up to the assistant coaches, the associate head coaches, to bring in that offensive flair that the Mavericks can use. He's always had the defensive style, not quite, if you want to go back to like the Danny Casper, Texas State era, not quite that grinded down defense, because those pieces just aren't there. That's a very unique style of defense. But, there's several attributes of that, the way he runs his defense, that come from Danny Casper, because Greg Young, he's very familiar with Casper. They've known each other a very long time. They've taken tips from each other here and there. So it is more the defense. And what we've learned in these last few games is UTA, they're never going to be out of it because we haven't seen the same type of game where the Mavericks have been down and come back, or the Mavericks have been up big and lost a huge lead. We're starting to see those come together, but it really is. It has been the defense, and just Greg Young's mantra is one play, one day. And when it came down to that Georgia Southern game a few hours ago, it literally was one play. You're down 14 with 10 minutes to go. Hey, get one stop. Hey, just get one stop here. Get one stop here. You might find yourselves in it, and they did. Unfortunately, overtime didn't work out. But you got to give the defense credit, because they're going to be built like that. They're aggressive, and they're never going to find themselves out of it.
One of the big stories there that I saw for the Mavs was Patrick Mwamba. He is the first NBA Academy African graduate to sign and play at the D1 level. and just the 4th overall from the academies anywhere in the world to come, and he's playing in the Sun Belt. What does he really bring to the table, and how is that guy fitting in with the team?
You know, Patrick, he's such a great story. And he's a great guy. Love chatting with him. He's pretty funny. Very, very smart. His story is really awesome. You know, the coaches found him at the the NBA Africa, that school down there, and offered him a scholarship here. And he's gone through some troubles on the court. Broke his foot at Gonzaga a couple years ago. He was out for the whole season. Rehabbed himself, came back, and now he's the star that he always knew he could be. And yes, he's a scorer, but his on-ball presence on the defensive side is one of the best. He's got such a great wingspan. He's quick. He's aggressive. Kind of a maybe a starter project. Root Monyong. If you go to a Little Rock reference there, such a great guy. Like I said, and now we're starting to see his numbers come together because he's always been off the bench. Always been okay. He can do some damage here and there. Now we're seeing where teams are having to really key on him. It's like, well, if we get him started, that's going to fuel the fire for everybody else to get going.
So all this talk about the men's side of basketball, the women are just as dominant and sitting at 2-1 overall. They did have an OT loss to Houston, but Shakira Wright really has this team up and going. Finished as the number 2 seed last year and really leading the way again this year with Star Jacobs. I mean, first of all, great name for your star, no pun intended, player. But she's an All-American 2-time, 20 double-doubles last season, averaging 18 points. I want to say she's right there around that average again so far. What does she really bring, and how are these women kind of leading the charge, so to say, for the men?
Yeah, Star's been absolutely phenomenal. Transfer in just a true score. Actually, they won that Houston game. That's an overtime win for UT-Arlington, and they already are coming off. And it was a few weeks after that they defeated South Florida. South Florida came into College Park Center ranked, and the Lady Mavs took it to them. That's a really experienced squad. They've got a great core group of girls that have been there now 4 or 5 years. Taryn Milton, Katie Farrell, Emma Halverson, Claire Chastain, and the list goes on with that experience. And that's the team that Krista Gerlich built. And give Shrika Wright a lot of credit here, too, is keeping that core together, keeping them bought in to what they can do. And now we're seeing those fruits being shown off. Now, they had a tough one against Troy. Troy voted number 1. Troy's a really good team. And that's kind of been, there's about 2 or 3 teams over the last couple of years that have been atop the women's standings. Troy, UT-Arlington, and you throw in a couple of maybe South Alabama over the last couple of years. You always worry about the Raging Cajuns down there in Lafayette. But this is a very experienced team. And, yeah, the basketball is very healthy right now for UT-Arlington. You didn't know exactly how that was going to be when you have a coaching change, on both sides in the last couple of years. But the women, they're doing really, really good. Love talking to Shrika Wright. She loves her team, and they love playing for her. And it's just sad that they've had one game canceled. They didn't get to play South Alabama last Thursday. So hopefully this COVID situation works out, because both these teams, they just simply want to play. I know y'all want to watch these basketball games, and they like where they're at. They've got some work to do. Obviously, you saw that yesterday in their loss to Troy, but they're feeling pretty good, and it wouldn't surprise me if they're top 2, top 3 in the standings when it comes to the end.
So you mentioned COVID. And we know that COVID just makes everything stupid. It's been this way for 2 years now. Everything's just been ridiculous because you don't and I'm wondering just in a more step back from everything and try to be objective with UTA having a good start and these other teams having a good start and some teams that we expected to have great starts not having good starts. How much are we seeing, do you think, is sort of a COVID mirage where we're not seeing the very best SunBelt basketball right now? I know that UA Little Rock is now canceling games. We got canceled games from Georgia State. We have South Alabama canceling games. I don't know if even ULM, whom Arkansas State played on Saturday, I'm not sure if they even had a full roster of guys. So it just seems like right now that everything's being hung on a thread. Maybe we're not seeing everything. That maybe by the time it gets closer to March, we're going to just see totally different types of teams out there. Or do you think that what we're really seeing is being displayed right now? That the still a pretty accurate representation of what the Sun Belt is.
Yeah, no, I think that's a question that everybody's asking right now. And because, I mean, look at Texas State men's, they played one game and they were depleted. South Alabama played with 6 guys the other day, lost to App State, then they had to cancel the other team. Now, UT-Arlington, for the most part, we only had 2 guys missing this last trip. We're sitting at 3-1. So, and now Georgia Southern was without Elijah McCadden, their leading scorer. We saw them last night. Georgia State had their whole complement back, but they've been on a 2-week break and didn't play. And we saw that there. So now not only taking, okay, who's missing? And then, okay, when's the last time you played? Are you in shape? Are you ready? Are you conditioned? And if all this can simply go away, it's not, sadly. I think every team's going to run into their issues. We count our blessings here at UTA that we've played 4 games, which is crazy. That we got through 4 games the first 2 weekends when not a lot of teams have been able to do that. I do think when these teams get their everybody back fully, that we are going to see those teams that we expected, Texas State, Georgia State. Okay, they're going to string some wins together and they're going to be atop the standings. But if this trend continues, that it's pretty much the wild, wild west, and if not everybody's going to get 80% games in, and wherever the seeding falls, I mean, it's going to be I don't even think you almost have seeds. You don't even look at the seeds when it comes to tournament, because I think every single game is going to be winnable for any team. I throw ULM there. I throw Coastal Carolina in there. I think if this trend continues, players are going to miss times for a month, that when it comes to the tournament time, seeds simply aren't going to matter from whatever perspective you might endeavor when it comes to if you do the old betting thing. I wouldn't even look at seeds. I think it's going to be a total toss-up when it comes to tournament if this trend continues. But as you said, I do expect those teams that have struggled, they're going to find their way. They're going to find their wins later on in the season, because we do know Texas State is a talent.
Yeah, I think that is those are some excellent points you make. Especially about, it's not just about, oh, well, we're COVID free now, we've got all of our guys together. You still have to recover from that. Even after you test, negative for COVID, you still have to get back on the court and get that synergy back. Maybe it's possible that none of these teams that have been hit hard, and thank God some of our teams haven't been hit hard. Arkansas State is one of those teams. Maybe it's just a matter of the survival of the least sickest for the Sun Belt this year, and I think I don't think that's a negative or a positive. I think that's actually a team that knows how to handle its roster and knows how to stay healthy, and possibly took vaccination serious and made those strides. So good for those teams that are staying healthy. Feel really bad for teams that aren't healthy and seem to be missing out on this pivotal first few weeks of Sun Belt play.
Yeah, and you talk about that gets in a whole nother realm of vaccinations and whatnot. That that's whatever. It is what it is. But just it's 2020 was such a weird year. You only played a certain amount of games. You don't want to discount anybody's championship from 2020. And now we're starting to see some early signs of that here in conference play in 2021. That it's like, okay, well, how many games have they played? Are they really that bad? Are they really that good? That's just questions we're gonna have to wait and see. And that's what's unfortunate. Sunbelt made the policy of we're not going to reschedule any games. I don't know when you would be able to reschedule any games, because now at this point, there's almost too many games to reschedule. You're simply just going to run out of time. I don't know what the solution is, if there is a solution to that. But the 80 percentile when it comes to the seeding in the tournament, it already looks like that's going to come into a big factor. Look at the women's side. 4 teams still haven't even played a conference game. That's unbelievable. And we're 2 weeks in. So how's that going to fit in with everything? So we got some wild times ahead when it comes to these standings jockeying for both the women and the men.
So we were talking a little earlier about UTA as a whole. The rumor mill is spinning around with all the conference realignment stuff. That this will be the last time, Josh, we ever get to talk. There's a tear. No more Mavs. What are you hearing from your side of up in Arlington? What's happening with the Mavs and the SunBelt Conference?
Well, it was pretty much the linchpin was going to be football, and there's no football in the near plans for UT-Arlington. As a UT-Arlington graduate, that saddens me, just because I'm a UTA guy. I would love to see football here once again, because it was, lost in 1986. Never got to see it, unfortunately. But that's the lay of the land up here in Arlington. So Keith Gill and the SunBelt, they've gone out and got all these other teams brought in, James Madison, Southern Miss, Marshall, Old Dominion, all them. That's going to be a really good football conference. And it's going to be a really good football conference, especially that East Division out there with App State and whatnot. Basically, we're looking for a basketball conference because we want to be a basketball school, and we are a basketball school. So SunBelt's not going to fit into that plan for us. So then you look at the Missouri Valley Conference, you look at the Western Athletic Conference. Western Athletic Conference has gone through a total facelift over the last couple of seasons. And a lot of the old Southland teams that we used to have a rivalry with, Sam Houston, Stephen F. Austin, Abilene Christian, they've all gone to the WAC. Now, Sam Houston's going to Conference USA now, going next season. But then you have Stephen F. and Abilene Christian in the WAC. Now, the other side of that is the Missouri Valley Conference. The Missouri Valley Conference has expressed interest in the DFW Metroplex to get a little further south. They have that in baseball with Dallas Baptist, but Dallas Baptist is only D1 in baseball. So that's kind of the two options right now. I think things are on the table. Nothing's been signed yet. Nothing's been named official. But I think the days of UT-Arlington in the SunBelt are going to come to an end. Maybe sooner, maybe later. We just don't know. It all depends on what these other conferences are able to get done.
So there's no real concrete plan, I guess, so to say, in place. As it stands right now, UTA will be in the SunBelt forever and ever. Amen.
Absolutely. Right now, yes, we're there next year. That schedule would be insane with those other teams coming in from a basketball perspective. I don't know how that would work. I'm sure they're putting those plans in together right now. But yes, as of this right now, UT-Arlington is in the SunBelt for the foreseeable future.
And we always talk about football really driving things. It is, because that's the big moneymaker with the bowl system, the potential playoffs and things like that. Do you think that UTA is in a position where they could look at fielding football, or do you feel that that's just not a feasible possibility?
They could. There's no doubt. We have a stadium. It's still the stadium we had back in the 80s. It's just financial, the financial side of things. And when football left in the 80s, it was absolutely hemorrhaging money from the athletic department. And then you think of how that was in 1986. That's going on almost 30 years ago. 40 years ago. Geez. Yeah. So, in inflation and you take in more, accounts, broadcasts, ESPN and all that. So it's something that can definitely be looked at. But I think financially wise, the university is not in a state to do that. The university actually doesn't even have a full-time president right now. We have not had a full-time president for the last couple of seasons. We've had an interim president. He actually just got a job at NJIT. And so we're still in the process of hiring a full-time president. So a lot of questions in the air here in Arlington when it comes to leadership and where everything's going to be going. It is sad we don't have football. It's an expanding university, beautiful campus. Maybe one day, but unfortunately tomorrow will not be the day.
So, you continue then to be a citizen of the SunBelt, Josh, and we're glad to have you as a citizen of the SunBelt.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate
it. Royalty in a lot of ways. But I was wondering, just, almost in another 30,000 foot observation, who do you see in the SunBelt basketball right now that has surprised you, and who do you see as an emerging threat? UTA, of course, being one of them, but who else is out there that you're looking at and surprised you a little bit?
Well, yeah, we like where we are right now. If we get completely healthy, we like our squad. You talked about it at the beginning of the show, Troy. We played Troy a couple weeks ago, and that's not the Troy from the last couple of years that we've saw. And
but you beat them.
Yeah, we did barely. Yeah, it was close. Yeah, it's close. I worked with Scott Cross for a number of years. When I was in school at UTA, he was the head coach, and he knows how to get guys to stand up and play. And now he's starting to get his guys in there that he wants. And I think Troy is your dark horse emerger. And we played them. They've had a couple good wins this year already. They're a tough team. I put them in a category like us. You may not have just the ultra mid-major talents that you'll find, but you're going to find a lot of guys that may not score a lot, but they're going to do the right thing. They're going to work hard. They're going to play hard. They're going to be aggressive. So I'd pick Troy as the dark horse. Other than that, as we talked about earlier, it is so hard to tell. I really liked Georgia Southern yesterday, and Georgia Southern was minus Elijah McCadden. That's just the fun part about this mid-major Sunbelt Conference basketball is, now these teams are a little bit more even. Everybody can match up with everybody. That was so hard about our non-conference schedules. We're going against these Power Fives, everybody that went to the tournament, Oklahoma State, Oral Roberts, and a couple others, Utah State, and we're just getting absolutely outmatched and dominated. And now we're starting to see this is kind of fun. We actually have a chance in this game, and Mavericks are putting themselves together. Yeah, Troy, the dark horse, and I don't even know what to do with App State right now. I really don't, just because we don't know who's going to play day in and day out, and it's really funny when you hop off the bus when you're on the road and the opposing coach is there at shoot around waiting to greet everybody. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, all right, he's not here. Cool. See you guys later. It's a weird.
That's how it is now. Modern Sunbelt basketball in the COVID
I won't
era.
name names, but and I'm not saying I haven't done that either.
Sure.
We're all Southern schools and just very hospitable is all it is.
Absolutely.
That was.
Absolutely. Got to make sure that Powerade is in the or the Gatorade's in over there and everything. So yeah.
Well, Josh, we thank you for joining us to talk Mavs, both men's, women's basketball, and the future of them being in the Sunbelt Conference. Any parting shots there for you?
Parting shots? No. Well, we do have the Raging Cajuns this week. Hopefully we can play that game. That'll be a fun one. Yeah, real nice of ESPN to pick up the South Al Georgia State game for ESPN2 and not the Raging Cajun UT-Arlington game. Just top 2 or 3 teams in the Sunbelt Conference play on Thursday. But hey, we want to show off Georgia State. That's what we want to do here on ESPN. So no, thanks guys for having me. I appreciate it. Sorry it took so long to get me on. Hopefully I can come on a few weeks down the road before the tournament. And thanks for having me. And I still want one of those T-shirts, by the way.
Hey, by the way, before the tournament, we might be crowding up a lot of people on this show because it looks like just about everybody's going to be a contender in the tournament. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a busy next couple of months for FunBelt Podcast, and we do appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
So, Jeremy, we were talking UTA, football for the Mavs. None at all.
No.
ULM has football.
Yes.
And they have our first guest of the FunBelt Legends, and that would be former linebacker Cardia Jackson. He was with the Warhawks from 2006 through 2009.
He's a legend. Yes.
He is a legend. 2009 co-defensive player of the year, 4th in Sunbelt Conference history with 381 tackles. That's 5th all-time ULM, 3-time all-conference selection. The man, Cardia Jackson. Welcome in, Cardia.
How's it going?
So you were a guy that was from Monroe, originally committed to Louisiana Tech. You were wanting to leave the great city of Funroe, then flipped on National Signing Day to become a Warhawk. Tell me what really kept you staying right there in the city of Monroe.
To be honest, my mom was in the hospital at the time, and I had a younger sibling who passed away 2-3 years ago on me, and I had a decision to make, to be there for my family, go head off and pursue my career, and I chose to stay close to home, close to my mom, because she was in and out of the hospital, and I had to help my little sister out. So, what better other place to be is home,
Very fortunate for the Sunbelt. Maybe not fortunate for some of the opposition of the Sunbelt, though.
That's right.
So when you go back, I want to say your first season, you had just under 100 tackles there. How was it kind of making that transition in from high school to college overall? And then knowing that you were the local standout, and now all of a sudden you're playing in the big stadium there of Malone Stadium.
The speed of the game was a little quicker. You had to adjust to it from high school on up to college, collegian level, whatnot. You just had to get on pace with the other guys. You had all the MVPs going to college, so you 1 out of 10 to make it. So being in my hometown, it was good to stick around and have the same fan base. Come out supporting. I was right up the street, so it was pretty good for me. The most difficult part was the speed of the game. It was a little quicker.
What's your biggest memory you have, or your first collegiate memory of that first time stepping on the field?
just how fast everything was going, the pace of the game and getting calls and getting everybody lined up right when me being the quarterback of the defense, it was like that. It was real quick. So that's the biggest adjustment I had. Once I got that, I think everything went smooth after that.
I mean, what was your favorite game in your time as a member of a Warhawk?
Oh, I have to say the Alabama game.
The one that you guys ended up beating Alabama?
Yes, sir. 21-14.
Now, let me ask you this. What was the reaction of the crowd as the tickets or as the time was winding down and it became evident that there was not going to be any hero coming out of the sky to save Alabama and that the Warhawks were going to be the winner of that game?
I think Nick Saban underestimated us. He was looking down on us. I know it was his first year, but I think he underestimated us. He looked down on us. He put his second and third string in to start, not realizing we all put on the pads the same way. It's a mind game. You got to go out there and, get physical and get at it. You can't be scared. That's one thing. I was more excited to play the bigger schools because I feel like they gave me more publicity to get out and get my name known. So I was ready to ball, SEC come around. I mean, any game, but the most important games to me was the SEC, the big ticket games,
Well, one of the other big things during your time frame there at ULM, they were very dominant over the rival Louisiana Lafayette. How big were those games, knowing that closing out the season, it was always going to be a good fight, but it was always going to be typically in ULM's favor?
That rival there was something like Wiseman and Carroll. It was a good rival, in-state rival, and we was the real Louisiana. They wanted to say we was Louisiana Monroe, but we was Louisiana. The real SunBelt Louisiana, I say. But it was a great time going up against Fenroy, and he was there the whole 4 years I was there, and it was a good competition.
Now, are there some guys in the conference that you, in the time that you played in the Sun Belt, that you look back on and say those guys were probably my toughest competitors? Do you look back at those guys, and do you have a list of those guys that you think of those guys were the best I ever played with?
I'm going to say Fenroy for the Sun Belt. Everybody else, I mean, Morris from FAU, he was pretty good, but no one was better than the ULM defense at the time we was there. No one. I can't even admit that.
Well, the only guy that gave you guys a challenge was Alfred Morris from FAU.
Yeah, and outside the conference, probably the most difficult running back we ever played was Darren McFadden, because he was just all around.
I heard of
hard
him.
Running. Yeah, he's good. Yeah, he was great back there. But I can remember a certain play we played Darren McFadden, and he said, "Warhawks? Who are the Warhawks? Where y'all from?" It was like totally disrespect, but what can you do about it? Oh, Darren McFadden.
I guess you got to go out and tackle, right?
Oh yeah.
So when your time at ULM came to a close, went undrafted, but got signed as an undrafted free agent by St. Louis Rams, how great is that when your phone rings, it's your agent calling saying, "Hey, we got us a deal"?
A dream come true, man. It was really a dream come true. And not only a dream come true just to make it, just to go on and play NFL ball, just to experience of winning a Super Bowl, just being in the Super Bowl. I mean, those were times you can't get back, It's priceless. You can have all the money in the world. You can't buy a Super Bowl championship ring. So I feel like everything happened for a reason. And, Lord sent me to St. Louis for me to get cut in Green Bay to pick me up, So if I would have made the 53-man roster with St. Louis, I wouldn't have had a chance to go get that ring, So everything happened for a reason, the good and the bad. You just don't know that bad till that good roll back around.
Well, help us out a little bit with that. You were talking about the speed of the game when you walked out in your first collegiate game at Monroe. How is the speed of the game compare when you hit the NFL?
It's like this. Blink, blink. It's that much faster. I mean, it's different levels to it, You just have to adjust to the levels of the speed of the game. And, it takes time. You're not going to get it in the first season. Well, some fortunate to get it in the first season. I just didn't have the reps, the opportunities. With me being a free agent, I was 1 out of the 10 to make it. to showcase my talent and what I can do. And once I got cut, I sat down and I asked my coach, I said, do you really think I'm NFL caliber? He said, oh, yeah, most definitely. But it was like I got the ring, and once I got the ring, it was like I was satisfied, to be honest with you. You know, because guys play 12, 13 years, you know, they never get to experience their ring. You know, they have all the millions of dollars, and, you know, of course, I wouldn't mind having a couple million tickets, but I'd rather have that ring over that meal ticket. You can't buy it. So, yeah, that was the most greatest feeling that I could experience with that.
So you got your ring, you had your career. What's going on with you now?
Well, basically, I transitioned to the railroad side of life, normal life, working man life. So that's what I'm doing now, raising my family.
And I forget, are you back in Monroe or are you in South Louisiana?
I'm in South Louisiana in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, I got to ask you this, though, as we circle back to your time with the Packers. I found the article, and I can already see your smile and how you were probably jumping up and down while you were talking about it. Jeremy, this guy had not one, 2 interceptions of Aaron Rodgers on practice squad.
Yes.
How great – and did you walk up and, like, hand him the ball afterwards going, I got something for you?
No, A-Rod here, pretty slick guy. I can just give him a little eye contact and, you know, point the finger at him, man. We talked later out the practice in the locker room about it. You know, he told me, keep doing what you're doing, kid. You're pretty good. You know, just keep doing what you're
doing. And saying that, how big is it that a guy from Monroe, Louisiana, that played at ULM in the Sun Belt was able to make it to the NFL and kind of have that experience of a Super Bowl, the interceptions of Aaron Rodgers, even on the practice squad?
It all happened so fast, you know. It was within the first year of me making it to the league. So it was surreal to me. You know, I didn't soak it in. And to maybe now, I still look at my ring sometime and, wow, you know, what I accomplished. But just being a small kid from Monroe, man, it was hard growing up. You know, I had a hard upbringing. Right before I got to college, I got shot in a random drive-by. I was the only one to get hit out of about 20 people. And that really separated me from the crowd, you know. And then once I got to college, I said I was going to do the right thing. Of course, you know, you get to college and hook up with your guys and you still be knuckleheads. But I watched who I surrounded myself with. You know, I surrounded myself with good company, and we just motivated each other to keep going. And, you know, every summer we was in the weight room, didn't miss a day in the weight room. So I think that played a big part of it, you know. Just being successful, just that drive, that want it. You know, anybody can be talented. You just have to work hard for it, you know. Hard work, I'll beat talent any day. Yeah, it was, man, you got me thinking about it right now. It was pretty awesome though, man. Like from Monroe to Wiseman to ULM to St. Louis to Green Bay, just being on that pedestal, that highest pedestal you can get on. And oh man, it still shocks me. It still shocks me. It's still unreal to me.
Do you ever kind of go back and play those plays in your mind going, hey, I got burnt. I should have went left instead of right or anything like that?
I have those the woulda, shoulda, couldas. Of course, everybody have those, you know. Man, I should have did this. I should have did that. You know, my high school coach once told me, he said, you do it right the first time. You do it right, you do it like. You know, you do it wrong, you do it long. You know, and that stuck with me, you know. So I try to do it the right way. Unfortunately, everybody's not perfect, but, you know, I got the job done.
So do you still keep up with the Warhawks at all, or have you kind of put all that behind you now, working on just being a dad and a working man?
Pretty much. I kind of put the football life behind me, even though I still, you know, communicate with the guys in my neighborhood that I stay in about, you know, reaching their goals and what they really want to do and go in the right direction to, you know, reach them goals. And I would like to become more active in the football world with ULM. You know, with my experience there and with me having to move away from home to raise my family and whatnot. But it's pretty much been work with me because my work schedule is pretty hectic on the railroad. So I really didn't have time to like go back and give back to the community because I'm a based on call on the railroad, so I have to be close to home.
Well, I do know that the Sun Belt always welcomes you back with open arms because you're one of the guys that really made the Sun Belt great. And we really appreciate your contributions to the Sun Belt, to the Warhawks, to the NFL, and to the state of Louisiana.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot there, Cardia.
Yes, sir. It'll be greater later.
I would have liked him to say, oh, yeah, the Sun Belt games are the best. But it's hard to beat that Alabama game.
Yeah. So our first legend in the books of Cardia Jackson, one thing that he said, his most memorable game, 2007, the Week 12 win against Alabama. I think that game is so much bigger than just it being a ULM win. And the reason I say that is that was the first big time win that the Sun Belt had to put the feather in its cap. Yes, I know in 2001, the first year of the league, Middle Tennessee opens up with a win of Vandy.
Yeah.
It's Vandy. I'm sorry. Yes, it's SEC, but it's Vandy. Year 2, you have North Texas beating Cincinnati in the NOLA Bowl for the conference's first bowl game win.
Yeah.
They follow up in 2003, beating Baylor of the Big 12. Troy in 2004, getting the league's first at-large bowl bid. 2005, Middle Tennessee again beats Vandy. 2006, for just the second time in the league, only 5 years into the league, we have 2 teams in the postseason. And then you have that 2007 where you have Troy beating Oklahoma State to kick off the year, or in week 3 rather, and then ULM beating Alabama. I feel like that year, the 2007 year, and especially that win over Alabama, really helped solidify the league as a whole, knowing that you had seen this progress year after year after year after year to get the Sun Belt to be the legitimate conference.
And in 2008, I hate to toot the horn of the Red Wolves just too much, but we ended up beating Texas A&M that year. And that was a kind of a nice feather in the Sun Belt's caps too. But yes, that 2007 year, Oklahoma State and ULM beating Alabama were 2 incredible wins. And you have to realize, if nowadays, you see a lot of good news about the Sun Belt. They're winning football games. They're expanding on a football level. They've become this sort of football conference. Back in 2001 and heading into 2007, up to that game against Alabama, I think a lot of people saw Sun Belt football as a kind of a joke. It was just kind of like the way that he was mentioning earlier when we were talking to our Sun Belt legend, Cardia Jackson. He was just kind of saying, as the Sun Belt, it was those SEC games, as those big games that gave him more motivation. But we had to win those big games in order for even our in-conference games to become big games. Does that make sense to you?
It does. And then also, I mean, it adds a legitimacy to the conference as a whole. And you have to remember, in 2001, when Wright Waters began college football here, this was a basketball and baseball league.
Yes.
And just as much as we talked with Josh earlier about UTA kind of being the outlier with basketball only, it was almost the inverse of that, of these schools with football. What are they doing? Because actually in 2001, ULM, for instance, was still in the Southland for all sports except for football.
Sure. Yeah. And, Arkansas State at the time had been, I think we were independent when we entered the Sun Belt. But before then, we were in the Big West. We were in some other just kind of fringe sort of football leagues. I think we're in the WAC for just a little bit. But the point is that there was really no home for a lot of us. The Sun Belt gave us a home, and it was a sustainable home. But that home at first was a bunch of outcasts that were it
was the misfits.
Yeah, just kind of a bunch of teams that kind of had been around for a long time, but had never really seen a whole lot of success. And so then to put those guys together and then to automatically assume that they were that the Sun Belt was going to be a great football conference. Well, that just wasn't going to happen. And yeah, when Cartier and his Warhawks beat Alabama, I'm sure Nick Saban did underestimate the Warhawks when they came in. Just like I'm sure Oklahoma State sort of took Troy lightly, even though Troy, I think, was at time actually a pretty good football team. But the point being, we had to get those wins for the Sun Belt to take that next step. And that's you need those wins to recruit players. You need those wins to get TV contracts. You need those wins to build a conference. If it weren't wins like ULM versus Alabama, there would not be the Sun Belt that we see today.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Now,
with
were
that
you
said,
there for that game?
What's that?
Were you there for that game?
I was not, because that was my son's 5th birthday. So
wow.
While the Warhawk fans were cheering the Alabama game, I was I think, watching Barney or one of those other kid type movies. I did go for when the team came back. There was a big celebration at Malone Stadium to kind of welcome the team back. I was there for that to get some video of the team rolling in and everyone cheering, chanting. Fantastic time that night. But yeah, for the game, no.
Now, I recall that ULM put up like an outdoor board kind of celebrating that win.
That there was a local car dealership in Monroe that bought billboards along I-20. Well, it was originally by campus to celebrate the win. Then later that year, once it kind of became clear that Alabama was going to go to the Independence Bowl in Shreveport and they were going to have to drive through Monroe, they made sure that they put several of them along I-20 on their way to Shreveport.
And you know what's funny is about Cardia? You know, he pointed out that win against Alabama right away. That was his favorite football experience as a Warhawk. And I guess what that culminated to, it sort of cemented to him as a player. It sort of validated his role as a player, that he could stand up with just these guys in the SEC, just like anybody else. You know, he even said it in a way, you know, we put on our pads just the same way as they did. And so by winning against winning against Alabama, it showed that the Sun Belt belonged on that gridiron. And it was something that was so necessary and so needed. And you really do, as a citizen of the Sun Belt, you really do owe a lot of thanks to ULM for breaking open that popping that cherry for us, so to speak, of winning these big games. And now it's I don't want to say it's routine, but in a way, Tibbs, it is. Beating Power 5 teams for the Sun Belt doesn't hold the same sort of allure as it used to. It's almost it's business as usual for us.
Yeah, it doesn't have that shock and awe factor to it, other than maybe what the margin or how the game was won, not necessarily that the game was won.
Yeah, absolutely. It used to be if a Sun Belt beat a Power 5 team, there was a lot of like, what's wrong with that Power 5 team? They must have had a bad day. They must have some internal problems. You know, maybe there's an illness. You know, there wasn't really any look at the winning team. Nowadays, you're looking at the Sun Belt team and say, these guys are really good, and they were the better team on the field. So, yeah, once again, ULM breaking that open for us. That was a big night. Cardia playing a huge part. Thank you, Cardia, for being a legend of the Sun Belt.
Our first legend of the Fun Belt in the books. We'll have many more coming up in the upcoming weeks. I'm looking forward to it because a lot of these guys I might not have necessarily covered in my time, or I knew of them but didn't really know them or get a chance to talk to them. So exciting to kind of see their perspective of what the league was back in the day. Some guys just before the league really formed, but were kind of the foundation for their various teams of getting into the Sun Belt Conference.
We're going to speak to Cleo Lemon, who was a master quarterback for Arkansas State, had a nice career with the Miami Dolphins. And I was speaking to him earlier. He said, well, you know, I really wasn't Sun Belt. The Sun Belt happened after us. But here's the thing with the Sun Belt. We needed players like that to build the Sun Belt.
To get into the Sun Belt.
Right. I mean, without Cleo Lemon, Arkansas State doesn't get into the Sun Belt. So it's just what's great. It's, you know, you get the SEC, and that's been like, what, have they been around for 100 years? You've got the Sun Belt that's been around, 25, 30 years. You have to look beyond the Sun Belt to see how the Sun Belt was made. And that's what we're going to do with some of these legends of the Sun Belt.
Definitely. We wrap up episode 1 of season 2, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Parting shots, promos, and plugs.
I do have a parting shot. Hey, did you watch the Arkansas State Warhawks basketball game on Saturday? Did you see that? It was on ESPN3. I don't know if you get ESPN3 in Houston, so I was just going to ask if maybe you had seen the game, maybe had any thoughts about that game.
I'm sorry, I can't understand you.
Yeah. It was a basketball game between the Warhawks and the Red Wolves. And it started really hot for the Red Wolves, and then the Red Wolves really cooled down, and the Warhawks got super hot by your Georgian forward, whose name I can't pronounce, but he was like making all these 3-pointers and then coming into the lane and making all these layups, and he was unstoppable. And then it looked like the Warhawks were going to win. And then all of a sudden they kind of just stopped scoring and stopped playing defense. And Arkansas State came from behind and ended up winning 90-83. Did you see that game?
So my parting shot there, Jeremy.
Okay.
There was a recent article out on the Extra Point talking about coaches getting doused with Gatorade.
Oh, okay. Tell me more.
And then it expanded to the Duke's Mayo Bowl and how Beamer got the Mayo bath. And how much would it cost to have these various liquids, solids, gels poured over you? Okay. By the way, the Duke's Mayo Bowl estimated to be $147. The Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, just under $200.
Now, what was poured in that?
For the Tony the Tiger?
Yeah. Was that Frosted Flakes? Okay.
Yeah. It goes up from there.
All right.
Then a cooler also of Bloomin' Onions at the Outback Bowl.
Ooh.
About $1,200.
Yeah,
I think as long as they weren't hot, I think it would be good.
That's a lot of Bloomin' Onions.
I would be okay with that. My favorite, though, was the most expensive, of course. The Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. Probably $6 million of stuff that wouldn't even fit in the jug. And if it did, it wouldn't pour out correctly.
All right. I do appreciate that article, but you know what it did not assess?
What's that?
The emotional cost of having $120 of mayonnaise being poured on your head. I mean,
it's gross anyway.
Is Beamer still like in a corner, just kind of sobbing and crying, reliving that moment of having to be doused with mayonnaise? Now, if you saw the video, and I'm sure you did, not only was he doused with the mayonnaise, which it has to be a sort of mentally catastrophic event just in the first place, but he also got pounded in the head by the jug itself, like enough to cause maybe stars or a concussion.
We call that and one in basketball.
Yeah, he did. He earned the and one. He got the hoop in the arm for that. So shout out to Beamer for not only sitting for that, he was a big sport, but also sustaining injury. But yeah. Now, we don't really have that kind of cachet in the, for the GoDaddy Bowl. We don't have a GoDaddy Bowl anymore, but what would you have put into the GoDaddy jug? Would have been, maybe a bunch of URLs?
I feel like at the time they were constantly pushing their coupons that you could find in almost any magazine or newspaper. So it would have to be a bunch of clippings of the coupons.
Okay. All right. So the Camellia Bowl, what would be in that? Would it just be flowers?
Flowers.
Okay. See, that would be nice. I get doused with flowers. What about the Lending Tree Bowl? Maybe some
cash money, baby.
Ooh, yeah, but you'd have to pay it back with interest.
Well, I mean, victors go the spoils.
Yeah, for a time being. Maybe what you do with that money, you could use it to build a small business or buy a house, and then you'd have to pay.
Buy your Super Bowl ring there that Cardia Jackson talked about.
Yeah. I was hoping he'd flash that for us, but I get he's not.
By the way, if you ever meet him, he wears it very proudly.
No, was he phoning us from his working man job at the railroad?
For his protection, I can neither confirm nor deny.
Okay, because I thought that was pretty cool. That was some badass. Like if you're going to be like a Super Bowl champion, I feel like the only way you can top that is being some sort of railroad champion too.
Calling us from the front of the train.
Yeah, I guess so.
What else do we have there, Jeremy, before we wrap up this first episode?
Okay. What? I'm sorry. What?
I asked, what else do we have?
Oh, well, we're missing a guy.
We are man down.
We're man down. We're missing the Ben Moore, who had some family obligations. Hopefully for season 2, episode 2, he can join us. We will have Cleo Lemon hopefully tomorrow, but we're not sure when his segment will appear. Maybe next week. Is that how that's working?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that makes sense. But we're going to talk to him tomorrow. But
we will talk to him tomorrow.
Through the magic of editing and production, it will be the second episode, which will be next week.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. That's it. I got nothing. You can, although here's what I do recommend our listeners to do is check out Hellraiser. There is a stunning account of a certain basketball game that happened on Saturday between Arkansas State and ULM. I won't give it away. I won't say who won, but it was Arkansas State.
Thank you, Jeremy.
No problem.